Hello and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast. And I'm joined here, as always, by the man who sports have not gone his way so far in 2020. Been a rough year for Boston sports. Kyle, how are you doing?
I'm good. I know everybody feels so bad for Boston sports fans. Just can't seem to catch a break, us as a group. But, football is back. I got my NFL Sunday ticket subscription today, and we got to watch some football yesterday in that exciting Central Arkansas Austin P game that I know everybody tuned into for college football. But it was exciting, even though it was a terrible game for 2.5 quarters. But football is back, baby.
Yeah, I do not. I'll be honest. I'm not going to have too much thoughts on that one. Yeah, and also to make things even worse, the one Boston team that's doing pretty well, the Celtics, you are not a fan of, correct? So
I'm not a Celtics fan, but
right,
yeah. So
just worse all around.
Insult to injury. So
yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, we have a fun show for you guys today. We're going to do something a little bit different. This is kind of our last, sort of off-season-y, just like kind of fun podcast. Before we're going to get into the actual talking about the season that's coming up soon. A week from today, so important news, a week from today, we're going to do it at 5. At 5 o'clock, we're going to go live this time. We're going to try it live. We'll see how it works. So 5 Eastern, I should clarify, Eastern time. That's when we're going to, so definitely try to check us out live then. And yeah, so anyways, for this show, the way it's going to work is we are going to do a draft. And we are going to do a draft of just trying to draft the best teams possible. So everyone's on the board. It's for 1 year for the 2020 season. If we could get a new franchise, but we only get players for 1 year, who would we draft? And we're going to just go forward. We have, every position. So all 22 starters, also a head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, kicker, and punter. We are not doing gunners. We're not going to get that in depth with this, but we're going to be pretty, no long snapping draft either in this one. We cut out a few, but I think this should be a fun show.
Yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. I think it could be very interesting seeing how we approach our defensive schemes, especially because depending on how that kind of goes, we could almost have our own picks for the taking if we go clashing defensive styles and go different formations to where we can essentially pick who we want, or we're battling for the same guys, which would be a lot more entertaining for everybody else. We also aren't doing salary caps because that's just too much work.
Right. Yeah.
So open cap, MLB style NFL team. Let's go. Let's do this.
Yes. So how do you think I was trying to think about this. Terrible planning by me. How do you think we should figure out who gets the first overall pick? Because we're going to get, here's what we'll do. I'll defer it to you. I'll let you make the decision. If you want first pick, it's going to be a snake draft. So you get first, or do you want the second and third overall pick?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to take second and third. I'm going to defer one to you.
Okay. Well, you know what? And we'll just get into it. I'm not going to overthink this one. I'm going to just go most important position, the guy who just won Super Bowl MVP and has won an MVP. I'm going to go Patrick Mahomes. I just think this is an obvious pick.
Yeah, it does seem pretty obvious to me. Patrick Mahomes is, I still think, pound for pound the best player in football. He definitely has the most impact on winning games, as the quarterbacks typically do. But from my perspective, I'm loving this because the best part about this is that now that you've drafted a quarterback, this isn't the perfect system, by the way, because we're only picking starting lineups. So now that you've picked a quarterback, I can essentially wait till the last round to pick my quarterback.
Right.
Unless you're going with the Taysom Hill style second quarterback in your lineup, which would be bold. So with the open floor here, I'm going to go offensive line and defensive line. I'm going to take the second best player in football. This is another obvious pick for me. Aaron Donald, I think, as a defensive tackle, has the most impact on any team defensively. He's a big-time player and always a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. And then I want to beef up my own line here. I want to win this hypothetical season in the trenches against you. And so I'm going to address the left tackle immediately, seeing how I don't have to address my quarterback. And I'm going to get what I think is the most athletic left tackle in football, which is Ronnie Stanley. So I'm going to go with Aaron Donald and Ronnie Stanley back-to-back.
Okay, so I like those picks. Aaron Donald I would have picked. Although I'm happy you went with Stanley because he was third on my board in terms of tackles. So I feel pretty confident about this. And so now this is interesting because there are tackles that my original game plan was get tackles right away, get 2 tackles, make sure you have them. But now that you've already taken one, the question is, do I just sort of do I kind of allow that to happen? This is definitely an interesting choice. I think what I'm going to do, trying to think through this, I think what I'm going to do here is I am going to first go with Bill Belichick. I'm going to get my head coach right here. I think that, again, part of what I'm doing is trying to figure out guys who I feel like are significantly above the rest of the field. I think Bill Belichick is significantly above every other head coach. I think this is a good pickup for me. And for my next one, I'm also going to go with someone who I feel like is significantly above everyone else. I'm going to go Christian McCaffrey. So again, this is one season. So I know people are going to say running backs, but it's just 1 year. So all I need him to do is be healthy for this year. We're losing them all anyways. And now I think with Bill Belichick coaching my defense and a Mahomes McCaffrey quarterback running back combo, I feel like the 3 most important things that I need are already taken care of.
Yeah, that Belichick one stung me a little bit. Obviously, he is above and beyond the best coach in football, I think, year after year, which is a big thing. But I do think that I can fill out with an all-star cast of offensive and defensive coordinators. I can make up some of that while also getting a very good head coach. So let's see. Do I go back to the well here and load up? I think that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to load up here. I'm going to load up on my offensive line and just get this out of the way and take the guys I know I want. So I'm going to go double offensive lineman here. I'm going to go with my right tackle, and I'm going to pick the best right tackle in the game, which is Ryan Ramczyk of New Orleans Saints. I do think he's the best right tackle in the game, as I said, and then probably the best athlete as an offensive guard. I'm going to go with Quentin Nelson. So I'm just going to go monster offensive line here. So I got Ronnie Stanley, Quentin Nelson, and then Ryan Ramczyk. Those are my 2 picks.
Yeah, again, very good. You clearly, this was actually my strategy going in, was to load up on the offensive line. But I think that the way things worked, I've sort of had to adjust my strategy on the fly. I don't hate this at all by you. So you're clearly working on getting the offensive line down. I trust that I can get some guys who can work on my defensive line and fix that later. Again, I'm just going to go with guys who I feel like are significantly better than who else I would end up getting. So I think that one of those guys for me is, I think, the best safe. You know what? I'm going to go 2 safeties here. I'm going to go Jamal Adams and Minkah Fitzpatrick. I want someone who can play a good strong, and I want someone who can play a good free. I think these guys would be a perfect fit for each other. And I think that there is kind of a bit of a lack of that top-end safety talent. So that's what I'm going to do here.
Those are both very good picks. I had them both on my board as one of my 2 safeties I wanted. I had Adams as my first strong safety, and I had Fitzpatrick as my second free safety. But I think that was splitting hairs here because I think you can make the argument for Fitzpatrick being the best free safety in football also. I think those are both very good picks. And, man, back to me again. Do I keep loading up on the position where I can cause some havoc? You know, I'm just going to keep going with it. I'm going to keep going with what I'm doing. I like my strategy here. So the first one I'm going to pick is Joe Thuney. I think he's an elite level pass blocker, and that puts me at 4 of the probably top 10 offensive linemen in football. So I just think that's a big thing. So I'm going to go with Joe Thuney here, and then I'm going to match with my defensive tackle. I'm pairing with Aaron Donald. I'm going to take Chris Jones. I'm going to have an elite interior pass rushing group with these 2. I'm going Aaron Donald and Chris Jones to start up my defensive line.
Okay, listen, I do not hate this. I mean, yeah, you're working on the trenches, which I do think is smart. The reason why I've kind of not done that, though, is I feel like I can find a good enough offensive lineman and good enough defensive lineman later. That's my thought process. Clearly, we have a bit of a different philosophy. Again, I think some of these guys are really good. I'm going to go back and I'm going to try and think about, again, how can I pick players who are better than the players that you will end up with. That is the goal right here. So, I think I already have a pretty good secondary. I'm going to make it a great secondary. I'm going to add the 2 best corners in the game. I'm going to get Stephon Gilmore and Trey White.
Okay.
So here's my logic right here, is that you clearly have a great offensive line, but I trust that I can get up a front 7 that can at least not allow the running game to be killed. And it's going to be very difficult to pass on this secondary, especially when I'm the one with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. No, I can completely agree with that. I thought corner was going to be an important position because we're both clearly going to battle for the same guys at cornerback. But the one thing I felt about cornerback was that there was enough top-end talent that I can still get a guy here that's going to help me out and win football games. Because I just think there is a lot of talent at corner right now. There are 2 guys here that I feel like pretty confident I could still have a major impact on a game, even though I lose a guy like Gilmore, who is the best defensive player in football. Don't you forget it. All right, so I got a rebound here. So I have my interior defensive line looking good. I have my offensive line looking pretty good here. I'm going to go with the guy who I do think is probably head and shoulders above everybody else on a team at terms of his position. You can make an argument for a few other guys based on different variables, but the complete package of George Kittle, I just think is too much. Because he's just that good of a blocker, I'm going to go with Kittle here. And then, how do I want to end this up? I'm going to get another guy who can be a playmaker for me. I want the receiver that I want. I'm going to go with Michael Thomas. I think that in terms of possession receivers, there's nothing better than having Thomas on the team. I have 2 guys that are great intermediate route runners, and I'm going to go with both of them here as my back-to-back picks.
Okay, here's the thing. I love the George Kittle pick. I hate the Michael Thomas pick. Here's why I hate the Michael Thomas pick. There is so many good receivers. I feel like you're not there. There's never been more top end receivers in the league. I just feel like it's kind of a waste of a high pick, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was debating it, but the thing is, too, is I feel like I don't need a quarterback yet because you drafted a quarterback. I don't need a running back yet because you drafted a running back. I still feel like there's plenty of players that I can go with here that are going to make an impact, and you drafted both your cornerbacks, too. So I feel like there's a lot of position. If I'm going to lock up, I'm going to try and lock up the best player at a position group before I move on to players that you already have.
Okay, well, listen, I mean, there's some logic there, but also about the Kittle thing. Yeah, Kittle's great. Kittle, I thought about getting him earlier. One of the best, if not, the best. Or he's like, I think he's the best tight end. If you don't think he's the best tight end, you think Kittle. You think that Kelsey is slightly better. But I think that what he does in the blocking game is just so impressive. I definitely do like that pick a lot. So so I'll move on. Now I will be going here. Again, I feel like I'm playing you right here. I feel like you're like doing the Oakland Raiders sort of, I'm just going to get who I want. I'm not worried about this. I am definitely playing against you. I'm trying to get things that are going to hurt you. So first things first, I'm looking for guys who I think are significantly better than everyone else on their team or in that position group. One of those guys for me is defensive coordinator Greg Williams. I think Greg Williams is just a ridiculously good defensive coordinator. I know that, listen, I get the bounty gate stuff, but I think that what he can do on defense, Bill Belichick notoriously doesn't call plays. I think Greg Williams can be a really good play caller. They kind of have a similar system, so, I think that that'll work. You're also having Jamal Adams in that, and one of the things that you really need in a Greg Williams defense is a strong secondary. I have Fitzpatrick, I have Adams, I have White, I have Gilmore, and now I have Marshawn Lattimore. I'm going to go for third corner here to screw you over because I'm trying to make sure that you don't have as many good corners, and plus I can play nickel all this time, which I think I'm okay with.
All right. Well, Lattimore was a player that I wanted. I guess that is a good pick to take him away from me. Mm-hmm. The Greg Williams ones is interesting. I actually didn't have him on my board. I do think a lot of these top defensive coordinators, are willing to adjust their schemes based on their personnel. I didn't have Williams on there because he typically runs that 3-4 defense. And with 2 defensive tackles, I'm clearly loading up for a 4-3 defense. So that's the only reason why I didn't take him, but I understand the reasoning for taking him because he is, I don't know if he's above and beyond the best defensive coordinator in the NFL, but he's been one of the best for at least 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, the only reason he doesn't have a head coaching job, in my opinion, is because of the Bounty Gate stuff. I think there's no way he would not have gotten a head coaching job with what he's been able to do. And I think you saw like, with him in Cleveland. I mean, I think that's the best example of how good he was able to be. And I also wanted to screw you over, so I took Lattimore.
Yep, that's understandable. So now with that, I'm gonna go with you've been talking about the best players at position groups compared to everybody else. I'm going with two guys on defense here who I think at they are the best at what they do, and the first one's going to be Bob Wagner. There are a lot of good linebackers in the league, but I think Bobby Wagner is above and beyond the best middle linebacker in football. You can make an argument for a couple other guys. I just think Wagner, in terms of rush defense, pass defense, that overall ability, I think he's the best at that. And then the second position group that I think he is the best at what he does, but more than anybody else, because he completely changed that Chiefs defense when he was there to win a Super Bowl, and that's Tyrann Mathieu. I want him in that kind of nickel role where he can play as that third safety, that third cornerback, and kind of do whatever he needs to do and make plays. I'm going with Tyrann Mathieu and Bobby Wagner.
Again, one pick I love. I'll talk about that one. Wagner is, he's the guy who he just shows up to the Hall of Fame and they hand him his plaque. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's done so much for Seattle. I'm a huge fan of what he does. Easy pick. And I was very annoyed when you drafted him because I was going to pick him with my next round pick. So definitely a good job by you to steal him in front of me. The Mathieu one, I don't get, not because I don't like Mathieu. I think Mathieu is great. I think, you are right that like what he did with Kansas City was so impressive. He can play free or strong and play it very well. He has a tendency for big plays, but he also makes the small and subtle plays. I love Mathieu, but I already have 5 defensive backs. You could have gotten him at the end of the draft. I'm not going to get a 6th defensive back.
Yeah, I just love what he can do more than anybody else. I know you have your guys, but I just want to make sure I have that pick locked up. You already screwed me over once taking Lattimore, so I want to make sure I have my guy here.
Yeah, I guess that's fair enough. Okay, so now let's just review. We're about a third of the way through this, maybe closer to half. Let's just review what the teams are right now. I have on offense, I just have Patrick Mahomes and Christian McCaffrey. On defense, I have only a secondary, but a pretty good one. Gilmore, Tre'Davious White, Marshawn Lattimore, Minkah Fitzpatrick, and Jamal Adams. I also have 2 coaches, Bill Belichick and Greg Williams. And then for your team, you've got your offensive line loaded up. You have 4 out of your 5 O-line positions already filled. And in my opinion, obviously, the 4 most important positions, you have Ronnie Stanley, Ryan Ramczyk, Quentin Nelson, Joe Thuney, and you have the best blocking tight end in football with George Kittle. Going to be very easy to run with your team. So you also have Michael Thomas as a receiver. And on the defensive side, you have Aaron Donald, Chris Jones, Bobby Wagner, and Tyrann Mathieu. So here's my thought, is that I think that you clearly you have this great offensive line now. I have a really good defense, and I've clearly been working on defense a lot. I've used almost all of my picks on defense with the exception of 2 out of my first 3. I think I have to keep going that way. I think my goal is to just get a loaded defense. I trust that I can get a good offense. I already have Mahomes, which is the most important. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get somebody first who can stop the run. And you talked about the 3-4 defense. Well, I need a nose tackle if I'm going to run a 3-4 defense. Well, actually, I was thinking about that, but now that I think about it, there's 2 guys I like. I'm going to wait a little bit on that, actually. So I kind of gave away a little bit of it, something, but that's okay. I'm going to go. Let me just double check, make sure. Yeah, I'm going to go edge here because you don't have edge guys. I'm going to go with Khalil Mack and Myles Garrett. That's what I'm going to go with. I think that these are 2 fantastic edge guys. I think that they both could play a 3-4 very well. Mack's done it, and I think Garrett's done it too. So yeah, Garrett's even played with Greg Williams, if I'm remembering correctly. So he definitely has. So yeah. I think this is a really good 1-2 punch right here. I can rush the passer. I know you have 2 great tackles, but I think that these guys can still be good enough. They would find a way to generate pressure on Stanley and Ramczyk. And I think that you could at least not necessarily be able to sleep with both eyes closed now that I have these 2 edge guys.
Yeah, those are good picks. Obviously, elite level elite level edge rushers and that kind of position, I actually, surprisingly enough, didn't have those two as my top because I was addressing different needs as far as my edge rushers go. Although they are two elite level players, I had two different guys who I think could fill out my roster a little bit better. So that's why I went in a different direction. But those are good picks, and it was a good job on you for catching that nose tackle thing because clearly I don't need a nose tackle when I have two defensive tackles. So yeah, good picks overall.
And I was worried too. I was worried you were going to screw me because I said nose tackle, but there's two nose tackles I like too. So I was good. So I was like, okay, because if you want to screw me, you're going to have to guess both of my nose tackles that I like. So good luck.
Yeah. Let's see here. So now I'm in a position here. So you have two of your coaches. You have your head coach and your defensive coordinator, which obviously means that I should probably address and make sure I get the offensive coordinator I want before you take them. I had three guys on my list here that I was going between, and it was really depending on what quarterback I got. Seeing how you took Mahomes with the first pick, you can probably guess where I'm going with quarterback later in the draft based on my offensive coordinator pick. I'm going with Greg Roman and what he did at Baltimore as my offensive coordinator. I want the guy running my offense to set up basically with the quarterback that I'm getting. So Greg Roman, I think, makes a lot of sense there. You could probably, like I said, you could probably guess who my quarterback is going to be later in the draft. So with Roman, I am going to throw you for a little curveball here. I'm going to go with two tight ends, and I'm going to take the best two tight ends off the boards here to make you pick somebody you probably didn't want, although there are a lot of good tight ends, but I know I'm picking above and beyond the best two. I'm going to get Travis Kelce. The best thing with pairing Kittle and Kelce is Kittle makes up for Kelce's biggest weakness, which is his blocking compared to the rest of the group. I don't think he's a terrible blocker, but at the same time, he's not as good as Kittle in that regard. And now he can play that kind of H-back role and be that second tight end and just focus on receiving. So now I have two elite tight ends to pair with Greg Roman's offense. So that's what I'm going with, Roman and Kelce.
Okay, so this is an interesting one. Yeah, this is definitely very interesting. Again, continuing to build the wall of you look like the Baltimore Ravens offense out there, which I guess makes some sense with Greg Roman also as your offensive coordinator. I think that this is very, very fun. I'm looking at the board here. I want to make sure I get Darius Leonard. I think that he is, yeah. I think that I let you get Wagner. I decided to wait and pick up my edge guys. I took a risk there. I want Leonard. I think that he's someone who can really help this defense. And again, I'm clearly working on this defense a lot. And now I'm looking at this, and I think I have to finally start working on my offense to some degree. I think that you've taken tight end. And it's interesting because, we did take so many different pieces at the beginning. So now we're kind of filling out the roster the other way, which is very interesting. Okay, so let's see. You know what? Oh, well, here, I'm trying to just look and see, where are the positions that we both have needs. And I think what makes the most sense for me is to go with Justin Tucker. I'm going to go kicker here. I know this sounds crazy, picking a kicker in the middle of a round. But for one thing, kickers are incredibly undervalued. The statistics show kickers actually matter a lot more than people realize. I think Tucker is the best kicker available. The other reason I'm doing this is because I think there's only a couple areas where we both could draft guys. It's inside linebacker, center, and wide receiver at this point. So that really makes sense unless someone's going to do something out of the ordinary. So I think that kicker actually, with the differential between how good Justin Tucker is, I think this is where I'm getting the most value. So that's why I'm going to pick him here.
That's a fair pick. I don't think I would have gone kicker because I do, shockingly, you look at it every year and there's not a lot of good kickers in the NFL that you actually think there is. There's probably, but the thing is I feel like there's enough that if it's debating on between us each getting a kicker, that there's enough for two good kickers out there that I can get one that I want and not have to worry about it. Obviously, Tucker is an absolute weapon, though. So I understand you're getting the guy who's probably more valuable than a lot of other players comparative to their positions. So I understand in that regard. Who else did you pick? I forgot already. Darius Leonard. Yeah, that one hurt. That one hurt me.
Yeah. I'm also already getting buyer's remorse on the Justin Tucker pick, but we'll just move on.
Yeah. So, all right. So I'm going to complete my offensive line here. I've got a really athletic offensive line. I have two options here that I could go with. Once again, this was kind of depending on the quarterback I could take. I'm going to go with Jason Kelce here. I think he's the most athletic center in the league. His ability to pull and make plays is second to none. So I'm going to go with Kelce as my center, and that's going to complete my offensive line. I think I'm very happy out of this draft because I think I got the best offensive line because I addressed that immediately and completed here with Kelce. Going to the other side, the good thing is you addressed a lot of your positions as far as defense goes. So I'm going to finish out here with my wide receiving group. I'm going to take a Z receiver here. I'm going to go with Tyreek Hill. I want a guy with Kittle, with Kelce, with Thomas. I need a guy that clearly can stretch the field, and there's nobody better at stretching the field than Tyreek Hill. So Tyreek Hill is going to be my Z receiver here as I'm pairing up and trying to finish out my roster. That just about completes my offense besides running back and quarterback.
Yeah. So it's these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, so it does. So unless you're going to go just no quarter, 5 wide every play, seems like that's what you're going to do. Yeah. Okay. So this is interesting. So just looking back at what the needs are again, I haven't drafted any positions on offense other than 2 out of my first 3, Mahomes and McCaffrey. Other than that, I've addressed special teams before anything else. But again, your offense, you don't have any other real room except for quarterback and running back. And there's plenty of good running backs and plenty of good quarterbacks. Let's see. So I'm just out of the other positions, unless I'm missing something, I believe the only thing left on our roster that that we don't both have is punter. I believe punter is the only thing left. Am I missing something? I don't believe so.
Yeah, neither one of us has drafted one, I believe.
Right. So the question though is, I can't I can't justify, maybe you're going to do something weird just to try and screw me. So I can't justify going punter here, even though I just went kicker. I just think it's not, I don't have any key difference really in my top 2 punters. So I'm not really that concerned about it. I think I'm just going to start to work on some stuff on defense. I'm going to build up my defensive line. First, I'm going to go Kenny Clark here. He was the guy who I almost drafted earlier before realizing that position-wise, I didn't need him that early. I think he's just an incredible run stopper, can play to nose very well. Obviously, Green Bay just gave him a big contract, so I think it makes sense. Again, I'm doing a 3-4 here. I believe Geno Atkins would be a good 3-4 defensive end. I know that's not, I'm not even sure if he had, to be honest, I'm not sure if he's done that a lot. I know that he will often play 4-3, but I think that he definitely has the capability. Someone correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, and he does do that. But I think Geno Atkins and Kenny Clark, you have a great line, but I think that it's going to still be very difficult to run against this defensive line.
Yeah, that's a great pick. Obviously, I think it's now that we've kind of, put our battle lines of who we're going to address first to kind of play that chess match. We're kind of just filling out our roster with all the guys we want at this point. So obviously getting the guy who's the best nose tackle in the league definitely helps. So Clark is a good pick there.
Yeah. And what do you feel about Atkins?
Atkins, you can't ever go wrong with a guy like that. He's a great interior pass rusher. I think that's a great defensive. You're forming a great defensive line, especially when you're pairing him with Garrett and Khalil Mack. That's going to be a great matchup watching your hypothetical defensive line against my hypothetical offensive line.
Yes, agreed. Okay, so now we're going to get 2 picks back your way. Your needs are you still need quarterback, running back, edge, a linebacker, cornerback, a safety, and you need head coach, defensive coordinator, kicker, and punter.
All right. So I'm going to start with my edge here. I'm going to go with the guy who I think was the best fit for me because I have 2 great interior pass rushers. So I need a guy who can do a little bit of everything, who can rush the passer at a high level, which will definitely help because I think I'll do a lot. My defense as it's setting up is not going to require me to blitz a lot. I can rush 4 or 5 and get away with it at times. So I'm going to go with Cameron Jordan. I think Cameron Jordan's a really good fit with my defense because not only is he a great rusher, he's also a great run stopper too at the defensive end position. So having him next to Donald and Chris Jones, I think is an elite front four for defensive, or 3 of my front 4 for defensive line as I address that later. And then I'm going to fill out with my first safety spot. I'm going to go at the back here with a guy who I saw was statistically gave up 0 touchdowns when targeted last season, and that's Anthony Harris. I think he's one of the best free safeties in football, and being able to get him here, I think, is a great thing for me. I had him slightly over Minka Fitzpatrick, but again, I feel like you're splitting hairs here, so I'm going to go with Anthony Harris.
Yeah, Anthony Harris was my number 2 safety. I really like Anthony Harris a lot. This is a pick that makes a lot of sense, and Cam Jordan makes a lot of sense. You have a great pass rushing defensive line right here. I mean, they can stop the run as well, obviously, but definitely it's going to be Mahomes is going to be running for his life, except I'm obviously probably going to get a pretty good offensive line, given that I can pick literally anybody that you haven't picked. So, but still very good, very fun. And I do think that Anthony Harris, so it looks like it's going to be more of a, Matthew being the strong and Harris being the free, but I also like this pick because they both can do both. And also with Harris, we know how he's worked with Harrison Smith, so which is the kind of a similar guy to Tyrann Mathieu. So I think this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I have a bunch of different ways I think my secondary can go in, but I do think that starting with that group is exactly what I want to do.
Yeah, makes sense to me. So listen, I only have one position left on defense, so I'll hold off on that for a bit. I'm trying to think about what the best way to handle this is. I think I got to go with, I'm going to pick up, I'll go receiver first. My question right here is simply just, what receiver do I think fits Mahomes perfectly? I want someone who is very quick. I want someone who can move in open space. This is not someone who I even consider a top 5 receiver. This is someone who I think will play well with Patrick Mahomes. So I am going to go with Odell Beckham Jr. Now, I realize that, he has injury problems. He hasn't had the success as a lot of these other guys, but I just can't imagine, him not getting open on these deep routes with Mahomes being able to hit him consistently. I think I probably would have gone Hill. If I could have, you took him. I think that was probably a little bit of gamesmanship from you. Good move by you. I think that Odell Beckham, again, maybe I'm overthinking this, but I think he's just a perfect fit for this kind of system.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Odell Beckham's become almost underrated. There was a lot of things wrong with what Cleveland did last year, and obviously his attitude has turned off a lot of people. When he's going, he's one of the top. I think he's the top 5 or 6 receiver in the league. Obviously, we haven't seen it in a couple of years because he's been on some bad teams. But yeah, I think that's a good pick. I think him and Mahomes would almost be unfair.
Okay. One more pick. This is something I think I have to do. So you've really worked on your offensive line. Not just that, but you went out and got multiple tight ends to make sure that you can have a good blocking team. I think that this is something where I'm just, again, I know it's not necessarily the best podcasting when I'm just thinking about stuff. But yeah, I mean, listen, you went after Greg Roman, Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator. I think I got to take the Baltimore Ravens wide receiver, Lamar Jackson here. I think this is what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to get Lamar Jackson. I'm going to play him at receiver. Unless this is the plan just to get me to make a dumb decision, I want to take Lamar from you because I think that you have a system so built for Lamar Jackson that now I'm going to force you into something that doesn't make a ton of sense scheme-wise.
Well, yeah, that definitely threw me for a curveball, but I think that I can still, I think I could still get a quarterback here that's going to help me out and, still be good for this system. If you want to take your pick on that, go for it.
Here's my thing, dude, too. Okay, this is not just, I'm just trying to screw you over. Yes, there's plenty of other quarterbacks in the league. Not only this, but now I have 2 quarterbacks. If Mahomes gets hurt, we said before, it's for a full season. Now, if you pick a quarterback, that quarterback gets injured. Well, now you're kind of out of luck. now I have Lamar Jackson who can come in and play quarterback. On top of this, I think Lamar Jackson can still play receiver. He played a little bit of receiver when Joe Flacco was there, and he was fine. Again, he's not going to be anyone else I'm going to potentially be able to draft. But I think Lamar Jackson could actually still be good in this. He could be above, at least a replacement level receiver out there on top of this.
Well, that's an interesting pick. It obviously threw me for a curveball, but I feel confident now that if I'm going to have an elite secondary, that essentially your starting lineup now with Lamar Jackson at receiver is going to play to my advantage.
But I have Patrick Mahomes. I'm not too concerned. Lamar Jackson can still accelerate quicker than I guarantee you. In a 16-game season, Lamar Jackson's going to get open deep down the field for a couple of balls.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I still feel pretty confident in my book there.
Okay, well, we'll see. Hey, the fans are going to decide. Oh, did I mention? I don't think I mentioned that at the beginning of the show. I meant to mention that we're going to have a poll up on the JKS channel, so you can just that's going to decide who has the better team. The winner of whoever is the winner is going to get a slight advantage next week in we're going to do our picks like we mentioned earlier. So make sure you vote on that if you feel strongly one way or the other. But yeah, so I screwed you over. Now, what is your response?
All right. Well, I'm going to go. So it's clear that I think that you are going with heavy duty passing. You have obviously Mahomes. You have Christian McCaffrey, who is a good runner, but also a great receiver at the running back position. I think it's very obvious that you're going heavy passing on your offensive side of the ball. So I'm going to get one of the best coverage linebackers in the league, and that's going to be Jalen Smith of the Dallas Cowboys as my second linebacker. This was going to be my Leonard spot. It does hurt that I do lose him, but I think getting a guy like Smith who can cover anybody at linebacker and has been a great athlete so far, I think that's a great pick for me. And then I'm gonna pick one more safety on here. I'm gonna go with Derwin James. Obviously, playing, getting hurt last year took a lot of the hype out of James, but he's still an elite level safety, and I think that this next season, he's going to be second behind Jamal Adams in terms of strong safety spot. So getting a guy like James to pair with Harris and moving, I think Matthew's an elite safety, but he's, a fantastic talent to have as that third safety role. So I'm having him in that third safety kind of nickel role, and I'm moving Derwin James to my safety spot.
Interesting. I don't know if this is. I'll be honest. I'm not sure about this one. I'm not sure about just because I don't know if it makes a ton of sense to have three safeties. I think I would have rather just gone with a third corner instead. But again, I don't know the rest of how you're going to build your defense. So maybe there's going to be something else here. But I do think this is interesting, especially with you see how I'm going for speed in the wide receiver position. And so I think I can definitely get an advantage here. I think what I'm going to do next is I am going to worry about my offensive line. I think it's about time. It was literally my plan going in to build the offensive line. I'm done, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not going to count them all. I've done like 15, 20 picks, and I still haven't picked a single offensive lineman. I think I'm finally going to go about doing this. I'm going to get my tackles. And actually, interestingly, I know you're very proud that you did a good job of picking 4 out of you had all 5 offensive linemen before I picked 1. So in theory, that should be good. Except 4 out of my 5 offensive linemen I had prepared to be picked, you didn't take. The only guy you took that I was prepared to take was Quentin Nelson, which makes me feel pretty good. And so I am going to go with my 2 tackles, David Bakhtiari, the best pass blocking tackle in my opinion, and then Trent Brown, the best run blocking tackle in my opinion. Even though Ramczyk was definitely up there as well, but I think that I'm going to go Brown just because of his running game. I mean, you already have him, so it doesn't matter. But you could argue Ramczyk over Brown, but I do feel very confident with these 2 tackles, and I don't think there's a clear upgrade, even though I got these way later in the draft than you got your guys.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick there. I like I really like the Bakhtiari pick, especially with Mahomes. Having a guy, did he commit a penalty last year? Like, he's been insane. Like,
I think he committed. I definitely remember he's committed a couple, at least one. But and he's ridiculous. I mean, I think Bears fans are saying he commits a penalty on every play, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, I mean, he's been good for a number of years, and he's prolonged Rodgers' career a lot longer than a lot of other left tackles would. That's a great pick.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. My picks were great. All right, so we'll go on to you now. Again, just to try to set the stage. Your positions of need: you still need a quarterback and a receiver on offense. On defense, you need an edge rusher, and then you kind of have looks like maybe to be two corners is what you're going to need, unless you want to do something weird. And then you also need a head coach, defensive coordinator, kicker, and punter.
So I'm going to address my first. I'm going to address with my second edge rusher here, and then I'm going to address cornerback finally. So the first guy I'm going to go with is Trey Flowers. Trey Flowers, I think, is similar in my book to Jordan in that he can do it all. And with a great interior pass rush, I need a guy who can not only be a great pass rusher, but can also stop the run at a very high level. And I think that I have two of the best pass rush or rush defending defensive ends in Jordan and Trey Flowers to go along with. They're also great pass rushers as well. And they're going to be paired with Aaron Donald and Chris Jones. I think that's an elite defensive line group. And then I'm going to address my first cornerback. I'm going to go with Jalen Ramsey. I think I think the hype has kind of gone down on Jalen Ramsey these past couple of years because of whether it's attitude stuff or just, moving teams, all that kind of thing. I still think that at his best, he's a lockdown corner and one of the best four in the league. You obviously took three of them. So I'm going to take my fourth cornerback here. I'm taking Jalen Ramsey as my number one guy.
Yeah, I had Ramsey as my fifth guy. I had Marlon Humphrey ahead of him as well for Baltimore. I do think Ramsey's gotten a bit. People love to say that a star player is all of a sudden a terrible player. Like, he's still really good. So I like that pick. I'm not so sure about the Trey Flowers one. I think that, listen, I like Trey Flowers a lot. I think part of why I don't love this pick is because, I think one of his clear values is the fact that he can sort of move anywhere and he can play anywhere on the defensive line, which you're kind of losing when you already have, a set defensive line. I really like Trey Flowers. My main reasoning for why I don't love this pick is because Chandler Jones and TJ Watt are still on the board. But clearly you're very focused on the run defense.
Yeah, I think that I don't want you to win this game on the edges against me. So I addressed it with, I think, two of the most athletic offensive tackles in the game. And then I, doubled down with, I think, two guys on the defensive end who I think set the edge really well. I don't want you to win this game on the outside. I want you to have to go up the middle on me.
Okay. Well, listen, I mean, there is logic there. I am going to now just continue to work on my offensive line. I'm going to get Zach Martin here, who is someone who I think is he was my number 2 guard. Obviously, you took my number 1. I think Martin is, for Dallas, tremendous player for sure. And then my other pick, I'm going to go Rodney Hudson, center for Las Vegas now. Again, I was back and forth on Hudson and Kelsey, so I just decided I'm not going to draft center because I'll let you pick the first one and I'll get whoever's left. I think that Hudson and Jason Kelsey are basically a coin flip. So I like getting him here after you've already taken your center. And again, I think that Thuney, I think was I get it because Martin and I believe Martin and Nelson are both left guards, so that makes sense. But at the same time, I feel very happy with Martin here.
Yeah, I like both those picks. I gave Thuney the slight edge because he doesn't commit penalties. And I think that, amidst all those athletic linemen that I have, I need one who's probably the best pass blocking interior offensive lineman in the league. And then Hudson, the same thing. It was kind of the same book for me. I wanted a more athletic center. So I decided to go with Kelsey. I think that they both present value in their different positions. But getting a guy like Kelsey was important for me, especially as I was building my offense. So I think that works out for both of us. We're both happy in those positions.
Yeah, I agree. And so now it's your pick, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's time for a bit of a wild card here on my defense. If you listen to some of our past podcasts, I gave him a bit of a hard time. But I think the one thing that he does really well is make plays on defense. And this guy had 27 interceptions since 2015. That leads the league. And so if I'm getting a guy that can make plays, I'm going to get Marcus Peters. I have a guy who I feel like can lock down a number one in Jalen Ramsey, but then I got a guy I could put over on the number two, and he could just go get turnovers for me. It's a guy like Peters. He'll take a few risks, but I feel like with guys like Anthony Harris, with Derwin James, with Tyrann Mathieu, with that 5 defensive back look, I can put Peters over there and get away with him taking risk and have guys make up for it.
Okay. Again, I like this pick for me because I feel like Peters is great. I feel like Peters as a number 2 corner, while I have Patrick Mahomes, I think this is the big luxury for me here. I feel like he can get burned.
Yeah, I feel like he can too, but I feel like he also could end up with 3 interceptions on the day. So I'm okay with it either way. I'm taking the risk that the other 4 defensive backs that I have are willing to make up some of his missed risks for making up for the fact that he could end up with a couple interceptions on a day.
Okay, well, this is very interesting, I think. So let's try to figure out exactly how much we have left. So on defense, I still need 1 interior defensive lineman, and then I need an offensive coordinator and a punter. And then I also on offense, I have my 4 out of my 5 offensive linemen. I'll finish off with the offensive lineman. I'll grab Brandon Brooks.
Wait, wasn't that only one of my picks?
Oh, I thought you went. Okay, I might have been gotten confused. Okay, my bad. I was just talking like 3 minutes. Why didn't you stop me?
My bad. I was looking at it to make sure I was right. Did I pick anybody else and I missed it? No, I didn't. Yeah.
No, so, you might have been right. I might have just gotten. I was looking up something while you were talking, so I think I thought that you went twice, but you only went once. All right, sorry about that. That's my bad. Continue.
No, you're good. So I'm gonna go with a guy who I think at running back who has the most upside. I'm gonna go with a guy who I think can do a little bit of everything. He can catch the ball at a high level. He also, when healthy, I think is the most talented running back in the league. Now, the question, obviously, after his sophomore season is he healthy? But I'm okay with taking that risk. I'm taking Saquon Barkley here. I just think that when he's healthy, I think he's the most talented running back. So I'm going to take him here and build my offense around him with that great offensive line.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely one of those guys. Like, whether you think he's the best, the second best, or when you make a list of the best, he has to be in the conversation. I had a few guys higher. I have Ezekiel Elliott, Nick Chubb, and Derrick Henry. But I still really like Barkley. I'm not mad at that. So that's 2 picks now, right? I'm not interrupting. Not doing.
Yes, you're good now.
Yes. Okay. I'm still gonna go Brandon Brooks. I think that he's, again, fantastic all-around guard, can also pass block very well, which I think is important because I do feel like I need guys who can pass block. And so I'm going to go back. I'm going to finish off my defense here. I think I'm going to finish off my defense. I need another defensive lineman to fix things. I'm going to go DeForest Buckner. Again, he's a guy who plays. I've seen him play in some 3-4, and he's been good at it. I think he can be fine as a 3-4 defensive end. He can generate some pressure up the middle. This gives me a and plus I like the other 2 guys I have in the middle with Kenny Clark and Geno Atkins. It's not going to be easy to run against this team up the middle, even with your good offensive line. And I can get pressure along the side, and Buckner can also get pressure up the middle. So I think this is really completing my defense right here. And so that's my 2 picks, Brandon Brooks and DeForest Buckner.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, I think Buckner was one of my I had 4 defensive tackles on my board, and I, with obviously getting the pickings of taking who I want, I took Donald and Jones. I had Buckner and Fletcher Cox on my list as well. And getting a guy like Buckner makes a lot of sense. He's a big-time player who I think is going to have a big year for Indianapolis, by the way. So I think that's a good pick there. I like it overall. So I think as far as position players go, quarterback is my only one left, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, you have quarterback, head coach, defensive coordinator, kicker, and punter left. And I'll also say what I have left. I have 2 offensive players, so I still don't have a tight end, and I only have 2 wide receivers. I also have offensive coordinator and punter left.
All right. Well, you did throw me for a curveball taking Jackson. Obviously, this was this is an offensive line, a team that is perfectly built to Lamar Jackson's skill set.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think I had the perfect offense built for him to be able to do exactly what he does best and maximize the talent around him. But I've said for a long time, I feel like that Lamar or Russell Wilson in the same offense as Lamar Jackson could put up the same amount of numbers, and he's a more accurate deep ball thrower where he has Tyreek Hill running deep balls on for him all game long to go along with these players. So I feel like Russell Wilson's the obvious pick here as my quarterback to complete this offense that I think is going to be an elite running team while also having the ability to stretch the field, hit you on play action. I feel like I can go in a lot of different directions here, especially with Greg Roman at the helm. I'm going with Russell Wilson on that one. And then for punter, I'm going to address the position that you don't have and make sure, I'm just going to get the guy I want, and that's Johnny Hekker. I still think at this level, he's still an elite level punter. So not much more I can say about Johnny Hekker, but I'm going to go with Russell Wilson, Johnny Hekker.
Yes, Kyle's 1 hour film study on Johnny Hekker coming out later this week, so stay tuned for that. I got to be honest, I don't fully know exactly what kind of team you're going to do here, because I feel like these are all really good players. I wonder if part of your strategy is just I'm going to get a bunch of good players and just sort of assume that things can work out. But I feel like the thing about the Lamar Jackson, RPO offense is that Lamar is so quick at accelerating. I think that Russell Wilson is good, but I don't think he's quite at that level. He is more accurate deep. So it seems like your plan is to still run a very similar offense, or are you going to? I'm assuming that the way we're doing this, you have some sort of say in this. Are you going to kind of maybe just do that to some degree, but also sort of have more of a passing offense?
I think the good thing that I have going here is that I can go in multiple directions with it. I think I can run the same offense that they ran with Jackson. I mean, the other guy I debated to fill in the spot now that Jackson's gone was Kyler Murray. Because I think, but I took the known commodity over the upside pick here. I think Wilson can still run this offense at a high level and still get to the edges faster than a lot of defensive linemen, which will help. And then the other thing is too, out of play action, Lamar Jackson's really good, and that's why I was going to take him. But if I'm running play action I have a lot of moving offensive linemen. I have an athletic offensive line that I think can set the edge and get out there faster with Saquon Barkley. And then if I'm coming out of play action out of that group with Russell Wilson, I like a lot of what I'm doing here. I think that this could be a really good group here to hit you on a lot of play actions and just run the same offense that Baltimore does.
Okay, well, it does make sense. I mean, the clear upside you have here is that I went so hard on secondary, and now you're going very, looking for a run first team, which I think is smart. I'm going to do the opposite, and I'm going to hit you the opposite way, where you clearly focused on the trenches. I think that your secondary, it would struggle against the deep ball. I believe that, because I think that Ramsey and Peters, I think they would have a tough time going up against some fast receivers. I also have already used a pick on Lamar Jackson. And so I think obviously I need a wide receiver here, but I'm instead going to go 2 wide receivers here. I'm not going to draft a tight end. I'm instead going to pick up 2 receivers. I'm going to go 4 wide the whole game, or even 5 wide with Christian McCaffrey. I'm going to pick up Julio Jones and DeAndre Hopkins. I have speed. I have guys who can run all kinds of different routes. Julio Jones and Hopkins, both great. Also at contested catches. I think that the one thing we've seen with Peters is that when he's going up against lesser talent, he really thrives. When he's going up against great talent, he really struggles. He's also your second corner, not your third corner, so you can't just hide him if you don't like things. I think this is a great offense to beat your defense.
So interesting. Full on spread here. I like it. No tight end look.
Yes.
This will be an interesting contrast in styles between you and I, because I loaded up on tight ends. I really think this game is going to come down to this hypothetical game of fun rosters is going to come down to, can I win enough on the inside and keep your offense off the field? Because I do think you have players that can attack my defense. I think my defense is very good, but because especially I think I got good coverage linebackers too, but you clearly, like you said, identified speed and use that to attack me. But I think my offense is going to be able to keep you off the field and also just dominate you in the inside. Plus, the other thing with speed too is you have to be able to block my front 4 enough to throw those guys deep. So I feel like it's going to be an interesting contest. I think it's a very good clash in styles between the two of us.
Yes. I also just realized we've totally been doing 2 different things the whole time, where we have said both that it's going to be a full season and also that we're playing each other. And we both had that mindset the whole time. So I guess we'll just say a full season against each other. We're going to play 17 times, and whoever gets the most wins.
Yes, exactly. I mean, this is like the NBA where you're addressing your roster to clearly beat the one other team that's going to make the final.
Right. Yes, I
So,
like that. Yeah. That's I mean,
so
that does make sense too, though. I mean, if you think about it, because these teams are going to obviously meet up in the playoffs with how loaded they would be. So yeah, so all the starting rosters are filled. We're now just doing sort of the fun positions. Let's see. So it looks like I'm just trying to make sure. I believe I have two. Yeah. So I have my offensive coordinator and punter left to fill. But first, you have your head coach, defensive coordinator, and kicker.
all right, another wild card here. I was thinking Josh Lambo originally as kicker because he's kind of underappreciated in Jacksonville because he isn't asked to kick a lot, but he's pretty automatic. But I'm going to go with a guy who may be a slightly worse kicker, but is without a doubt the best onside kicker of all time. Younghoe Koo is going to join my lineup here as the best onside kicker who can also knock down some field goals. I'm picking a guy who, if I need a turn of plays here at the end of a game, I'm going to get a guy who's at the back there winning some onside kicks while also being good enough to knock down some field goals. Younghoe Koo is going to be my kicker as the best offense or onside kicker of all time. I like that pick for me there. And then I'm going to address my defensive coordinator. Like I said, you had Bill Belichick, which I think obviously is head and shoulders above everybody else. But I think with an elite offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, I can make up some of that. Getting a guy like Greg Roman to run my offense, I think makes a lot of sense. With this 4-2-5 base nickel defense, I'm going to go with a guy who does it at a very good, high level as well, especially when he has an offensive coach he's asked to do a lot on that side of the ball. I'm going to get Robert Saleh out of San Francisco 49ers to run my defense. Mainly just because I want him to yell on the sideline and because he's an elite defensive coordinator. Robert Saleh is going to be my guy.
He was number 2 on my board. Although, again, he was number 2 on my board largely because I wanted to make sure I got I was really playing Minkah Fitzpatrick, having him be my free safety, and also working on. Although once I decided to go with good corners, it wouldn't have made a lot of sense to get him. I'm a little just so here's my question. Saleh, kind of one of his what he's been doing in San Francisco, especially, is just the space cover 3 zone defense. It's is your plan as well? I feel like I don't know if I love this kind of defense with this kind of team. Do you? Well, I guess there is some logic behind it now that I think about it. But actually, no. Now that I'm thinking about it, this actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah, no, this makes total sense because you have Harris as your free. You put Ramsey and Peters. They're now zone corner. I think Peters would be a lot better as a zone corner. Yeah, no, I mean, I think this makes a ton of sense now that I think about it.
Yeah, essentially those three aren't good. I'm not going to let you beat me deep with those three, I think, especially a guy like Harris, who, like I said, I think gave up 0 touchdowns last season when targeted. Plus, I have a guy like Matthew who can kind of be that jack of all trades. I can get him to play up. I can get him to be a fourth guy deep. I can get him to do a lot of different things. And I think that James fits in as that strong safety that comes up, plays with those linebackers because I have 2 very good coverage linebackers there. I have a lot of athletes in my secondary that I think really helps my defense, and I think Saleh is going to coach them up really well.
Yes. The one thing I feel good in my mind is that I have Mahomes, who definitely has recently come off a very good performance against your defensive coordinator, so that makes it feel a little good. But yeah, I think this is smart. I forgot that you had Anthony Harris. I think this might have been your You just threw a touchdown late in the fourth quarter to take the lead, I think, with this one. I think this was definitely a great pick right here to complete your defense.
Thank you. Yeah,
yes.
I like this team.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'll go to my offensive coordinator. I'm just going to get Eric. I'm not sure how you pronounce his name. Is it Bahimi? It's the Kansas City Chiefs offensive coordinator. That could be, probably. I'm terrible with names. Everyone knows this. He's the Chiefs offensive coordinator. He knows how to work with Mahomes. I think he would do a very good job of drawing up plays for my, 4 wide receiver, although one of them is Lamar Jackson. Maybe we could even have Lamar Jackson sub in, and then we could run some RPOs with no tight ends, because that would be smart. But, I think that this is someone who I think could, it just seems like the easy pick for me. And also, the reason why I didn't go punter earlier, even though it was the only way we could get any slight advantages, I really didn't care about if I got Hecker or Morstead. The reason why I decided I would have gone with Hecker was simply because like he can throw the ball, and so you have like that little extra thing of like trick plays. But other than that, like I feel like they're both really good.
Yeah, I actually had 3 as like I'm fine with any of these 3, which was Hecker, Morstead, and Tressway, the guy for the football team, as well. Yeah, so I filled out a couple different lineups based on like if I could get a guy like Mahomes, if I can get a guy like Wilson or Jackson. And the one thing I actually thought about with Mahomes is I think Eric Bieniemy is a very good offensive coordinator. Obviously, he's done a very good job, and he's going to get a head coaching job soon. I would love to see Mahomes in Byron Leftwich's offense from last season, just based on, they were able to check it around the yard with Jameis Winston and have insane numbers. Having a guy with almost better arm talent than Winston, which is not a lot of guys if you actually think about it. Having a guy like Mahomes in Leftwich's offense, I almost would have went in that direction, but I understand both sides. Obviously, getting the guy who's been with Mahomes these past couple of years makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. See, I don't love that. I watched I watched Leftwich very closely. I felt like he committed to the running game too much sometimes. And I think that I want a guy who's just going to, let the quarterback go out there and sling it. He also made some rookie mistakes, like, running the ball up the middle at your own 1 yard line and things like that. And I think that him being with Bruce Arians helped him in game planning wise. But I mean, I like Leftwich a lot and I like his potential a lot. But yeah, I think that getting the guy who's already worked with Mahomes just makes more sense.
Yeah, I understand both sides. I was just, it was something I thought about.
That is a good thought, though.
Yeah, so it comes down to my head coach here. Obviously, you took Belichick early, which allowed me to wait on this pick. So back when we did our coaching rankings, I forget how many months ago that was at this point, but I made the argument for Doug Peterson being a top 5 head coach. And somebody, I think, commented that, well, I thought Frank Reich did a lot of the work and Peterson got a lot of the credit. Frank Reich is a very good coach, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for what he did. But I think a lot of what Peterson does is I have great guys on my offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator side that a lot of the things that I really like about Peterson in terms of leadership and his ability to essentially let it all out on the table. He's a really ballsy head coach, isn't afraid to go for it on 4th down almost in any situation. I think Doug Peterson is a guy with an elite offensive and defensive coordinator, can be an elite head coach and one of the top 3 in the league, if not number 2, because he isn't afraid to just take a bunch of chances with his team and he trusts his coordinators to make the right decision. So I'm going to go with Doug Peterson here in this position.
Wow, this is an interesting one. So this is definitely not, one last curveball to end up the draft. That is the final the final pick. To me, because you're in an interesting spot, right? Where it's like when you have the good offensive coordinator and good defensive coordinator, like it's you don't really want to like if you got Andy Reid, who I believe you had as your number 2 guy. The problem is that like an Andy Reid mixed with Greg Roman, like how is that even going to work? I'm sure they would figure it out, but it's just kind of a weird fit, and it's hard to imagine exactly how it will work. So you kind of do want to go for a leadership guy. I kind of thought about this. For me, I had 2 head coaches on the board. I had Bill Belichick because I think that what he can do on defense is fantastic. And I also have Mike Tomlin. He was my guy that if I was in your position where I had coordinators I like, get him out there as he can kind of be the leadership guy. I like Peterson. I think Tomlin's better. I think that this was not the pick I would have made, but I think that I can understand why you would do it.
Yeah, Tomlin was 3rd for me. I was going between these 2. Obviously, I had Belichick 1, and then I was also thinking potentially if you took a guy like Greg Roman along with Belichick, that I could address it with a guy like Andy Reid for my offensive guy and a head coach. But I ended up splitting hairs because you took Belichick and I got Roman. I was splitting hairs here between Tomlin and Peterson. I understand both sides. I just think that a guy like Peterson who I just love the idea of coaches who aren't afraid to go for it on 4th down wherever the ball is on the field. And a guy like Peterson isn't afraid to do that. I think he's one of the most aggressive head coaches in the league. And getting him with 2 elite coordinators, I think, just helps my team.
Yeah, no, I don't hate this at all. So now let's just real quick for a couple minutes, let's just try to figure out exactly how this game would go, this hypothetical game. So I'm trying to think about this. Here's what I have in my head is I think that I think it's going to be actually. See, here's my thing is I feel like I have the better team. Obviously, I'm going to say that. That makes sense to say, but here's why. I think that while you did great curveball by you to really go run heavy, especially after I spent so much of my early resources on secondary. But I think that I'm still okay because of Jamal Adams. I think Jamal Adams can still he's basically a linebacker out there. So I almost feel like I still have 7, even though we both have nickels. I almost feel like Adams can kind of be that, hybrid. And so that way I'm a little bit okay here. And I have a front 7 that I think, listen, you're going to score points. I mean, you have a great team. I think you're going to get a couple of Tyreek Hill bombs. But again, like I like the idea of having someone like Trey White who can, I mean, no one can really keep, or, Gilmore, Lattimore. I feel like I like Lattimore against Thomas. I think that probably the only defensive back that I feel like would actually have a chance of covering Thomas one-on-one is on his team. So I think that that's kind of interesting. I feel like I can shut you down enough on defense. You'll still score points. And I just feel like I feel like my offense would score more points than your defense, than your offense would on my defense. I know that's not exactly great analysis, but that's kind of my thought process.
Yeah, I think if I were to do this over one more time, I probably would have addressed one player on the secondary early, just to have a guy like if I were to get a guy like Gilmore, just to have him there, I think would have been a big thing, because I do feel like I feel like getting, Adams was a guy I did tab as probably an early pick also, but you obviously got him, and I feel like getting James as that guy also helps, because I think, he's not at Adams level yet, but I think if he's healthy, he can play at that level. So I feel pretty confident with James. I think the big thing is that with you addressing Mahomes and then Adams so early, I feel like this was a game for me that I could potentially win on the ground with having that group. Yeah, I think it'd be an interesting clash, though. I think that we both address this game, this style, especially offensively and defensively. We both addressed it very differently. I think the one thing that will be interesting is how do you deploy Jackson on offense, or is it turning into you playing essentially 10 on 11?
Well, I think that Jackson is good enough that he could just sort of run those. Again, if I'm going 4 wide, he can just sort of run a bunch of setup routes. And I also trust that with Beckham, Jones, and Hopkins, they can get open consistently. And I have Julio Jones, who's a great blocker. I'll probably just sort of turn him into like a part-time tight end, so can do that. And then McCaffrey can do everything. Again, like I say, I can go 5 wide here. I feel like I think that in a vacuum, I feel like here's what it is. It's you're the Warriors and I'm the Chris Paul, James Harden Rockets. You're clearly the better team, but I think that I've built a team that can actually attack you and could potentially beat you.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it could go either way. I think the big thing would be, if I were to play your team, my game plan, or Doug Peterson's game plan, hopefully, would be to essentially take this ground game that I built with the offensive line, Saquon and Wilson, and just churn out 10-minute drive after 10-minute drive, because I do think you can attack me on offense. But at the same time, if you're not getting enough time on offense because I'm running the ball so much and I'm just churning out drive after drive after drive, then there's a potential that you're just simply not on the field enough to attack me enough. I think that would be my game plan, is essentially just churn the clock with all these athletes that I have running the ground game. And, I think I have a definitive size advantage, which is going to help me.
Yeah, I think that my run defense could actually hold their own well. Again, it's interesting to see. I think that I ended up having, this wasn't entirely intentional, but I think that I ended up having the better strategy of get Mahomes and then work on secondary, which was also the way that you could attack Mahomes. And I think you kind of did this in the flip side to some degree, where, you get both a good offensive line and defensive line. So we both kind of had that sort of same strategies on different sides. I just think that, in my opinion, I think that the running game isn't as important as the passing game, in terms of if you have a great passing game in today's NFL, that's going to beat a great running game. I'll give you one more minute to sort of give your final pitch. I think I just gave my final pitch. So you give your final pitch for why you think your team deserves to win. And then everyone, I'll just put it in the comments below. So just comment below who you think deserved to win. Which team would win the Super Bowl out of these two teams?
Once again, I think that the big thing that I could have is just I still think I'm going to be able to run the ball on you. Obviously, a guy like Kenny Clark helps, but I think the one thing about my offense and the athletic offensive line that I built, and a guy like Saquon and Russell Wilson, is I don't need to run up the middle on you. My offense, I feel like, especially the running game, is built to attack the edges where I have guys like Stanley, where I have guys like Ramczyk, where I have guys like Kittle to set the edge for me and get those athletic guys to the outside, and a guy like Kelsey Poling and Nelson Poling, who I think are two of the best at that in the league, that I can attack you on the outside against that defensive front that you have. I think the one thing that I did like about what I had for my team is I have a little Excel spreadsheet. I'm not going to share it here because I feel like the last time we tried to do that, it didn't work well. I essentially got just about everybody I wanted on my first string for offensive side of the ball. The defensive side of the ball, obviously the secondary is where I was hurt the most in getting the guys that I wanted. But I feel like addressing my front seven, or addressing my defensive front and my offensive front, is where I plan to win this game and where I think I can win this game.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, everyone leave your comments in the comment below. Winner will get a slight advantage in our next week's podcast where we're going to preview the week 1 matchup. Really looking forward to that one. And again, it's going to be live, so tune in at 5 o'clock if you want to check that one out. And yeah, unless you have anything else to say, I think it's ready for us to wrap this up.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Good show overall. We did talk before that I think it's going to be interesting to see where we could either pick our own guys that we're pretty much looking for, or if we're going to be chasing after the same guys depending on strategy. And I thought it was interesting that we were kind of able to pick out our own guys almost. Maybe besides secondary where you had the definite advantage. But for the most part, I think that we were able to pick out a lot of our own guys and build our own team.
Yeah, agree. So fun stuff. We'll be back next week. And until then, have a good one.
Peace.